This podcast is brought to you by Spotify for podcasters. Have you yourself ever wanted to become a podcaster? Well, Spotify makes it simple and easy to do so. You can record, edit, and even distribute your podcast straight from their app. The best part? It is absolutely 100% free. Visit their website, podcasters.spotify.com, for more details, and download the app on your Apple or Android devices today to get started on your podcasting adventure. That's Spotify for podcasters. What is going on, everybody? Travis Fowler Harkrider is back once again presenting a new edition of the Four Corner Podcast. So, you know what that means. It's time to talk pro wrestling on a Monday morning. And since we were off last week, we didn't get to talk about the Elimination Chamber. I had a personal matter that I had to attend to, but it left us with a lot of topics to discuss. So, let's not waste any time and let's go straight into the fallout from the Elimination Chamber. Overall, I gotta say the Chamber show, it wasn't bad, but it served its purpose. It's a great filler show between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and it achieved exactly what I think it was supposed to, which is just start filling in the gaps for what WrestleMania is going to culminate with. Rhea Ripley in the main event, her and Nia Jax put on a very well done match. Nia Jax, got to give the flowers to her. Since she has been back, I truly believe, and this is coming from somebody who is not a Nia Jax fan in her first run with WWE at all. And she has improved tenfold. I think she has just gotten what wrestling is. I think maybe stepping away from wrestling did her a world of good because she just seems to have come back revigorated, and her character work has been stellar. Like, it's very convincing that she's this unstoppable force in the women's division. And I think her and Rhea put on a spectacular main event, Rhea getting the W in her home country. And now we move on to WrestleMania with her and the winner of the Women's Elimination Chamber, who I saw some people thought it was better than the men's, which I wouldn't go that far. I personally feel like the Women's Chamber felt a little clunky at times, but especially the final sequence, that was superb. And Becky Lynch winning to now go on to WrestleMania and face Rhea Ripley. This is a big time match. Actually, both the women's championship matches for WrestleMania are really picking up some momentum. One has just like marquee names that really make you want to watch, where the other one is really in deep story, and it's very well for both championships that they have the spotlight they do. I know we'll talk more about the women's title matches near the end of the show when we talk about the WrestleMania card and how it's shaping up overall, but as it stands right now, I think WrestleMania is going to end up still being a pretty great show. Compared to what we were originally going to get, is it going to be a disappointment to some extent? Sure, absolutely. But overall, I think we're all going to get satisfied with WrestleMania, and I do believe it's going to be a match, or I should even say just an overall event that many of us are going to end up enjoying when all is said and done. Getting back to the Chamber, the spot with the Grayson Waller effect, I know they really did that mainly for Waller and the Australia fans, and also to get Cody and Seth into the show. I really didn't care much for it. I guess it served its purpose in Cody challenging The Rock, to which we saw what came of that just last night. We're recording on Saturday, and we saw what happened on Friday, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But I really have to give props for the men's chamber match. Some would say that was pretty predictable, Drew McIntyre winning the thing, and I don't think are necessarily wrong. I also think that was the correct choice to make. When it comes to overall, though, that chamber match, I think, was damn near perfection. I would almost argue to say that that's been my favorite chamber match since the first one, and that's all the way back in 2002. So I do think that it was very well structured. I think the participants all worked well together. You got stories to build on from here. And it's really, again, like I said, about the chamber match, or I should say, about the chamber event as a whole. Eventually, I'll get that right. It really was a great fill in spot, and it really gave us some ideas as to what WrestleMania is going to look like. So everything is looking great in my opinion, and I'm still stoked for Mania. I think it's going to be an amazing show. Before we go any further into the WrestleMania talk, let's cover some other things that have been making news. First, one more thing about the chamber I thought was an interesting fact that Michael Cole talked about at the live open event that took place in Australia when they got there. Pirates actually stopped the WWE from getting the chamber and some of the other structures over to the stadium and be built with some time to spare. They were going to use the Suez Canal, which apparently had gotten corrupted by pirates. So they had to take an alternate route to get the chamber and a few other things over there for the show. And it took them a little bit extra time, and it cost a pretty fair penny to get stuff over there. So I thought that was interesting that pirates actually could have affected the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in the most negative way possible. Again, just a little factoid that I thought was rather interesting for the Elimination Chamber weekend in Australia. Let's talk about TNA. TNA, who I think had been experiencing a bit of resurgence. Right now, there's a little bit of I don't want to say downfall because that's not what it is, but there is a bit of a dark cloud right now due to the Scott D'Amore issue that has gone on over the last few weeks. But as a whole, TNA and the product and the show still feels good. It still feels like they're going to be okay, and the direction that they'll end up going, I think, will be prosperous for them. At least that's what I hope. One thing that I found rather interesting, according to Uncle Dave, for those that don't know, that's Dave Meltzer from Wrestling Observer. I'm sure pretty much everybody knew who that was, but I'd rather be at least a little educational where I can be. He speculates and heard rumblings that TNA would look to go to a live TV format before the end of the year. And while he doesn't see that happening, one way that they want to do that he does believe could actually end up taking place, is them going to a centralized location and broadcasting the show from that location. Here's the fun part about it. Where is it that they are trying to supposedly look at taking this Impact show and going back to more of like the Orlando days where they were on the Universal Studios set? Full Sail University, and we know that Full Sail is no stranger to professional wrestling. They were the home of the Black and Gold NXT original brand. That has so many memories in that place when it comes to stars that were born, moments that were made, events that took place. Everything that you can talk about related to Black and Gold gets relayed back to Full Sail at some point or time. And TNA, if they want to do a live show, I don't think there'd be a better spot to do it than at Full Sail University, especially because it allows the same privileges that WWE granted the university with the students that are there. They're more graphic design-esque type people, and they actually had students working on the show to get experience. That is a win-win situation, I think, and the formula was a great success for WWE. I was kind of sad when that stopped, but they moved it over to the Performance Center, which has basically been about the same as it was over at Full Sail, at least feeling-wise, especially now that NXT's been on such a roll. So I think this could only be beneficial for TNA if they end up taking this route, and I, for one, hope this ends up happening sooner rather than later. But another piece of business that I am stoked for is the news that came out this week on WWE's newest signing. And I don't care what anybody wants to say. I don't care if you want to boast about what AEW has signed over the last year, your Jay Whites, your Will Ospreays, so on and so forth. Those guys are all great talents. Do not get me wrong there. But for me personally, I'm repping the shirt because I was a GOD fan, not just during their Bullet Club days, but when they became their militant self, where they broke away from the elite that was still a part of the Bullet Club at that time. and they just became basically guerrilla warfare, where they were going to go all out and attack who they wanted when they wanted. And it was such a fun time to be a fan of the Bullet Club because of the inner turmoil and the then hostile takeover by what would be known as the firing squad of the BC, which would involve Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, later Hikuleo, their younger brother. You would have Bad Luck Fale fall with them, Chase Owens as well. The originals were all, the two remaining originals, I should say, were part of this firing squad. And now, Tama Tonga has finished up with New Japan, similar to what Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada did this past month. And now it seems like he has indeed signed a contract with the WWE. And I, for one, am stoked about it. I have been a fan of Tama Tonga for so long, and while I didn't think his attitude and promo ability would fit well within the WWE canon, it's still iffy as to see if it would. I cannot wait to see him on WWE's weekly television. And there's already so much that you could throw him in where he would be an important factor. Obviously, the bloodline is right there to put him in, and he would fit like a glove. For those that don't know, is he a part of that bloodline dynasty? Well, according to Lance Anoa'i, yes, they do consider him family, so he could fit in with the bloodline in that way. I think, could he even play a factor for The Rock? And I think that could be something interesting. The fact that Tama Tonga, as we know it currently, has signed with the WWE, I cannot wait to see what they do. Another idea, they could easily, eventually, or even immediately, why not pair him up with the OC? Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson. Carl Anderson is another founding member of the Bullet Club, which also, coincidentally, AJ Styles was a leader of the Bullet Club, as was the OG leader, another founder, Finn Balor of Judgment Day when he was Prince Devitt. They were all part of the original BC. It was Bad Luck Fale, Tama Tonga, Carl Anderson, and Finn Balor, the original four, the core four of the Bullet Club. And who's to say you can't write something for him to fit into one of those factions, or maybe eventually they can do the whole OG BC thing that they did or tried once before when it came to Balor and the Good Brothers, which it still bothers me that they don't refer to Gallows and Anderson as just the Good Brothers. They still call them by their names, which I just find weird. The name's there. They have it on t-shirts for WWE officially. Come on. They're like right there. But I digress. One thing I do want to talk about that I found, whatever you want to call it, either way, it was rather interesting and a little bit off-putting, was the quote-unquote controversy that surrounded Maxxine Dupri this past week. For those that are unaware, there was a video that circulated that showed Maxxine selling the job of her neck from a match that she had just had at a house show, where this particular fan who was videotaping was heckling her and said that she sucked. Boo, Maxxine, you suck. You know, stuff like that. Nothing bad. Just normal fan stuff. And the outrage from people, as if he was attacking her on a personal level, was mind-boggling to me. I really could not believe how passionate people got, thinking that this guy was in the wrong and that fans in general who do that are in the wrong. This is professional wrestling, and I'm just going to be straight up honest with it, people, right now. I'm speaking from my heart. I'm also speaking as somebody who is currently active in the business, and I want to make something perfectly clear. Nobody was attacking Maxxine's work ethic. No one, not one person, not one post that I saw say that she isn't putting in the work, that, this stuff that she's been doing is absolute garbage and that honestly training's a waste of time. I didn't see any of that, nor did that fan say anything derogatory. Didn't call her any names. He just expressed how he felt about a character that he just watched. No different than if you, as a fan, go to a show and you boo for somebody that you don't like. It's no different whether they're a face or a heel, because sometimes people cheer bad guys. You may like one of the bad guys when everybody else doesn't. But for people to then say that this was inappropriate, no. Sorry, y'all are in the wrong here. And you're starting to become a little too soft. And on top of that, if you're in this business, you better expect to be booed or heckled at or something like that. If you cannot handle that emotionally, then you are in the wrong business to begin with. And I'm not saying that she is a soft person. I'm not saying she's handled it incorrectly. We haven't really even heard anything from her, which I think has been the best route to go in this scenario. She's been praised of the work she puts in behind the scenes, which I have no doubt. I think you can tell that she's trying, and I don't think that's anything that anybody's holding against her. This just ended up being a incident where a fan didn't like her and was booing her, which he has the right to do. Again, he didn't do anything inappropriate, so anybody who still thinks that that fan or those fans that do stuff like that in general are inappropriate when all they're doing is just being fans and they're not attacking the person but rather the character, y'all need to just back off a little bit. And remember, this is still a show. There's good guys, there's bad guys, there's people you like, there's people you don't like. So everybody relax and just enjoy pro wrestling. I'm sure Maxxine, being a professional, has probably not even given this a second thought and is just putting in more work and time. So Maxxine, props to you for wanting to be better in this industry. I wish you nothing but the continued success. And on a character level, if somebody's going to boo you, just run with it and either ignore it or play into it. Why not? It's what a pro does anyway. Now, let's go ahead and discuss the WrestleMania card that we see shaping up as it is. There has been rumors that there's going to be a multi-man Intercontinental title match. I actually think there's going to be a multi-man U.S. title match. They might end up going both routes with both titles. Some people want a ladder match for the Intercontinental title. I personally don't. I do want Gunther to have a one-on-one match for that title. He's the longest and, in my opinion, best Intercontinental champion of all time, and I think he deserves a one-on-one match. And who would that opponent be? Honestly, I think it comes down to just two people, Chad Gable and Sami Zayn. With the story that Sami Zayn has been running as of the last month or so of trying to get his position on the WrestleMania card, and it's just slipping further away, he picked up a win this past week, which really adds to the story, especially when they had their little confrontation backstage of Zayn and Gunther of like, this could be fun. And I think that match would be amazing between those two for the Intercontinental title. So I think and I hope we see that become the route. I still believe Chad Gable could become a champion by year's end, but Sami Zayn and Gunther, take my money now. From the U.S. title, I can honestly say that after the Chamber, we saw what looks to be LA Knight and AJ Styles going to show up for WrestleMania. And then from the looks of it, it looks like they're trying to do Logan Paul versus Randy Orton, which I don't think would be bad as a one-on-one match. But I don't think that that is a story that I could buy into, at least on its own. And what I mean by that, and why I said that I think the U.S. title should be a multi-man match, there's two match ideas that you can go with on this. Since they've enjoyed the Fatal 5-Way as of the last few years, you could easily factor in the LA Knight AJ Styles match to be put with Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, Randy Orton for the U.S. title in a Fatal 5-Way. Sounds pretty good in my book, especially if you want to still try to see if LA Knight is indeed one of your big stars, because in my opinion, I think his star has kind of not dimmed completely, but it has lost a little bit of its shine over the last couple of months. He's not getting the exact same type of big crowd reactions like he did near the latter of last year, but they're still there. He's still a big star. I just don't know if without putting a title on him soon, as in like really soon, I don't know if he's still going to have the same appeal for the audience moving forward, especially after WrestleMania. But if you don't go that route, and you still keep LA Knight, AJ Styles as just a straight up one-on-one by themselves, that'll still be a good match. Both are solid workers, but I would not mind the triple threat of Randy Orton, Logan Paul, and Kevin Owens. And the reason why I said that the Randy Orton story with Logan Paul wouldn't really be at least enough, in my opinion, to constitute a match for the U.S. title, Kevin Owens still has his story going, and there's still an issue with him and Logan Paul. He did commentary during Orton and Theory's match last night. So to me, it makes sense that you could have a situation take place where these two guys, Owens and Orton, both want to get to Logan Paul, but they still have to contend with the others. So why not give both an opportunity in the same matchup? I think that's what we're going to end up seeing. I also think title-wise, we could see the splitting of the Undisputed Tag Team titles, because as of this moment, Judgment Day isn't factored into any match. But you could easily plug in a fatal four-way for the titles to be separated. A two-fall fatal four-way match with one fall crowning the Raw Tag Champions, the second, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, vice versa, whichever you want to go with. But I would like to see that in the form of Judgment Day, obviously being the defending champions. New Catch Republic, still don't know why you just don't call Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate British Strong Style, but whatever. New Catch Republic, DIY, and as we've seen them reemerge, Awesome Truth. And I think you could have a great match to then split the tag titles in that way at WrestleMania. The other two title matches of the women's championship variety, I think, is pretty interesting as well. Because, again, as I said earlier, one is definitely more marquee, that being Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. Supposedly, Liv Morgan's going to get factored in there, and I don't know if I necessarily enjoy that or not. I was kind of thinking Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley is money on its own. And then on the flip side, the story with Bayley and Io Sky and all of Damage Control has actually been pretty interesting as well. It's starting to pick up its own momentum to the point where I've seen fan theories, but I know pretty much like everybody else that it's going to be a situation where we see Mercedes Moné show up in AEW in about 2 weeks' time. But I wouldn't mind if this is a huge surprise where Sasha does reappear to give Bayley some backup. You could even plug in Naomi to come back, and what do you know? The Kabuki Warriors are also the women's tag team champions. You could easily set up Naomi and Banks versus Damage Control if you went that route. But again, I know that's more so fantasy booking at this point because everybody and their dog pretty much knows what that big business show in AEW is going to feature in Boston here in a couple weeks' time. So that, again, wishful creative booking, my own fantasy booking, if you will. But overall, the story with Io Sky and Bayley has actually been interesting, and it's starting to pick up its steam. So I'm happy to see that for them. Do I think either one of those should main event WrestleMania night 1 or 2? No, I don't think the stories are strong enough for that. The two biggest stories are the Bloodline involving The Rock and Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins with Drew McIntyre lurking in the background. We know McIntyre and Rollins is going to be for the world title, which is going to be what seemingly I can only imagine is WrestleMania Night 2 because of what we heard proposed for WrestleMania Night 1 last night, and I'm not mad about that either. The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Rhodes and Rollins, yeah, that's a big-time main event. Then you've got the next night where it'll be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the undisputed title, while McIntyre and Rollins have their match, which, by the way, I think adding CM Punk as the special referee since he is being advertised for the final Raw before Mania. Why not? I think it would be a great storytelling device because Punk has issues now with both Rollins and McIntyre, so he pretty much has an even playing field and doesn't have a favorite that he could go for. So why not throw that little extra element into there, especially with the troll job, which has been superb by Drew McIntyre. I think that would just add to WrestleMania so much, and that match specifically. The match proposed last night with, again, the Bloodline versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins is very intriguing for a night one main event. And with the stipulations that Rock has thrown out for that match, I think that lends a hand to making Rhodes and Reigns seem even that much more important. WrestleMania is just doing phenomenal when it comes to building anticipation for each story that they've got going. Your big title matches, they feel big. They feel like a big time match. And that's what I'm loving most. Wrestling is cool again. It's amazing to see. And I, for one, could not be more ecstatic with the way things have been going. But the one last thing I want to talk about before we head out for this episode. Tomorrow for AEW Revolution, it is the final match of Sting's career. It is his retirement, his send-off, ride out in the sunset, all those cliches. And I just want to take a second to thank Sting. And I know this might be something that he may never hear or see, but I have been a fan of professional wrestling for nearly 30 years. And in those 30 years, I had two favorites. Because if you were a kid in the 90s, and especially if you watched WCW and WWE, which of course I did up for a certain point, you had two favorites. The WWE, Shawn Michaels was my guy. But WCW, which became my main destination for wrestling programming, my number one was Sting. Sting is my guy forever and a day. I have been a little Sting fan to a grown-up Sting fan now, and I honestly, I don't want to say I'm a little choked up, but it is the end of an era, and I would almost venture to say it's the last of our guys from that time frame that were the big stars. And I'm so glad he's getting to retire on his own terms as opposed to the unfortunate retirement we thought was taking place back in 2015, 2016 after the Seth Rollins match at Night of Champions. He's going out on his own terms, and he's going out with people he chose to work with. You can't have it any better. And for us fans on AEW this past week, him coming down from the rafters sent chills up my spine. Total flashback to 1998 and 1997 and that whole time frame. Just, Sting, thank you so much for the memories. Thank you for being such a great role model and honestly idol for a young kid from the panhandle of Texas, which God bless all those people down there as they continue to move forward through these horrible fires. But Sting, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the memories, and I wish you nothing but the best in your life going forward. And I know you're going to have a killer match to send off your career in great fashion. Guys, that's all we've got for you. What are you looking forward to with WrestleMania? Sound off on anything we've talked about today's episode in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel and you've hit that bell notification so you know and you will never miss an episode of the 4CP after you do that. Also, make sure you're following our social media pages, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Follow me personally over on X at Travis_4CP. And I will be back next week to talk more pro wrestling, the fallout for Revolution, and who knows, maybe we've got more surprises on this road to WrestleMania, as well as AEW having a few tricks up their sleeve. We know a couple that are probably already on the way. But guys, take care, God bless you, and as always, continue to love pro wrestling.